Today we're diving into a story that's got it all.
Yeah, this one's a doozy.
And it all starts with a listener, Christopher Volt.
Okay.
He inherited some land from his Aunt Myrtle, down in the Appalachian foothills.
Right.
Now, this wasn't like some grand estate, nothing fancy,
Okay.
just a simple kind of rundown cabin and some property.
Right.
The kind of inheritance you're not really sure what to do with at first.
Yeah, you kind of just hope maybe there's some, peace and quiet out there.
Exactly, like a chance to escape the everyday for a bit. But for Christopher, this inheritance, oh man, it turned into something else entirely.
It's funny how those things happen, how like the most ordinary thing can become,
Oh yeah, this is anything but ordinary.
becomes extraordinary.
So picture this right. Christopher, he's struggling a bit financially, just trying to make ends meet. And he's starting to explore this property he inherited, poking around, seeing what's what.
Sure.
And he stumbles upon, get this, a hidden cave.
Oh, wow.
And it's not just any cave.
Yep.
Inside are rows and rows of classic cars.
No way.
Yeah, and we're not talking about like beat up old trucks.
Right.
These are Duesenbergs.
Whoa, hold on. Duesenbergs.
Duesenbergs.
Yeah.
Top of the line luxury cars back in the day.
Oh, yeah, the kind of cars that like Hollywood stars and,
Yeah.
gangsters would have driven.
Exactly, the creme de la creme.
Wow.
So you've got Christopher, who's barely scraping by, standing in this cave full of million-dollar cars.
Now that's a shock to the system right there.
Talk about a contrast.
It really makes you wonder about the stories behind those cars, How did they end up hidden away in a cave in the Appalachians?
Right, like what's the story here? Well, that's what Christopher wanted to know too.
Of course.
And that's where things take an even wilder turn.
Okay, I'm hooked already.
As he starts digging into the history of the property, he uncovers a family secret.
Boy.
Turns out his Uncle Hank, the previous owner, well, he wasn't just some humble mechanic tinkering in his garage.
Let me guess, he was a bootlegger.
Close, but even more intriguing.
Okay, all right, you got me.
Uncle Hank had his hands in some serious organized crime back in the day, during the height of the American Mafia.
Now that's a family reunion story you don't hear every day.
Right. And those Duesenbergs, they weren't just a passion project, they were directly tied to Hank's criminal activities.
So we're talking stolen goods, hidden assets, the whole 9 yards.
You got it. These cars weren't just dusty relics, they were a direct link to a hidden world of high-stakes deals, dangerous characters, and a time when the mob was practically running things from the shadows.
Wow, so we're not just talking about a deep dive into a family history here. We're talking about a glimpse into a whole other side of American history.
Absolutely. This is about more than just one man's inheritance. It's about uncovering a hidden chapter of our past.
And I bet those cars could tell some stories if they could talk.
Oh, I'm sure they could. And as we dive deeper into Christopher's discovery, we're going to try to piece together those stories and figure out what happened to those cars and to Uncle Hank.
This is fascinating. I can't wait to hear more.
So we're talking about Christopher, right? Sitting on this pile of vintage cars, this crazy inheritance.
Yeah, it's like something out of the movies,
Totally. Like, what do you even do there with that? It'd be tempting to just, cash in.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those Duesenbergs are worth a fortune.
Right. But then there's this whole other side of it, the whole mob connection.
Which is a pretty big elephant in the cave, so to speak.
It's not just selling grandpa's old baseball cards.
No, you're talking about potentially attracting some unwanted attention.
Exactly. Who knows who else might be looking for those cars after all these years?
And that's where things get really interesting, right? Because we've all thought about finding buried treasure, but what do you do when that treasure comes with baggage?
Right. It's easy to say, oh, I turned it over to the authorities, but when you're talking about life-changing amounts of money...
It's a whole different ballgame then. The stakes are way higher.
Did Christopher ever consider just, selling them off quietly? I mean, surely there are collectors out there who wouldn't ask too many questions.
Oh, I'm sure there are. But there's always a risk, right? And word of a Duesenberg, especially a whole collection like that, gets around.
Yeah, it'd be like trying to sell the Hope Diamond at a flea market. Someone's gonna notice.
Exactly. And in this case, that someone could be dangerous.
Okay, so what did Christopher do? Did he try to contact a dealer or something?
Well, he thought about it, but he ultimately decided on a different path.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat here.
He went to the FBI.
What?
Yep, Christopher turned the whole thing over to the feds.
Wow, talk about a power move. I mean, that takes some serious guts.
Right. And it's not like the FBI was just going to show up and hand him a check for his troubles.
So what happened? Did they raid the cave?
It was a lot more complicated than that.
Oh, I bet. I can only imagine the FBI strategizing, trying to figure out how to handle this whole thing.
They knew they couldn't just waltz in and seize the cars.
Why not?
Remember the mod connection? This wasn't just about recovering stolen property. It was about taking down a criminal network.
Oh, right. So they needed to play it smart.
Exactly. And that meant turning Christopher's inheritance into the ultimate bait.
Wait, so they were going to use the Duesenbergs to catch the mob.
That was the plan.
Okay, now this is getting good. So they're going to use these cars to smoke out the mob, huh? Like a moth to a flame?
Except in this case, the flame is a one-of-a-kind Duesenberg.
So how'd they pull it off?
Well, they had to be smart about it.
Right.
Couldn't just put an ad in the paper.
I mean, slightly used Duesenberg, Mafia not included.
Something like that. They had to make it seem legit, like Christopher was just an average guy looking to make a quick buck.
So they set up a sting operation, like with undercover agents and everything.
The whole 9 yards. They had agents posing as collectors, appraisers, you name it. They even staged a fake auction.
No way. At the inheritance property?
Yep, right there in the Kentucky hills.
Yeah.
They turned that Sleepy Hollow into a high-security trap.
I bet those mobsters had no idea what hit them.
It was a long shot, but it worked. A few of them showed up, ready to deal.
So what happened? Was there a shootout? Car chase?
Surprisingly, no. It all went down pretty smoothly. The FBI was ready for them. They swooped in, made the arrests. No one got hurt.
Wow, what a relief. I bet Christopher was breathing a huge sigh of relief.
I'm sure he was.
Yeah.
It was the end of a very long, very strange chapter in his life.
So what happened to the cars? Did they end up in some government warehouse?
Some of them did, but Christopher, he actually got to keep a few.
No way. Seriously, after all that?
Yep. He donated some to museums, sold a couple to collectors, and the rest. Well, he turned that cave into his own private car museum.
Colt's Vault, right. Heard he even does tours now.
He does. And the best part is, he uses some of the profits to support local charities.
That's fantastic. So, from a hidden inheritance to a one-of-a-kind home and a chance to give back to the community.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected events can lead to the most amazing outcomes.
This whole story, it makes you wonder, what stories are hidden in our own families?
Right. What treasures might be waiting to be discovered if we just know where to look?
And more importantly, what will we do when we find them? That's something to think about. This has been a wild ride. Thanks for diving in with us.
Anytime. Until next time, keep exploring those family trees.